I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. The Godfather wasn't just a gangster movie, it was a war zone disguised as a film set. Behind Marlon Brando's whispered threats and Al Pacino's transformation into Michael Corleone lay a production so chaotic, so filled with studio sabotage and on-set disasters that it's a miracle the film ever got made. Picture this, a 32-year-old director fighting for his career while studio executives literally tried to fire him daily. A legendary actor who showed up to set with cotton balls stuffed in his cheeks, real mobsters threatening the production, and a cast that included future superstars who nearly walked away from what would become the greatest film ever made. Today, we're diving into 20 weird facts about The Godfather that reveal the brutal reality behind cinema's most revered masterpiece. Plus, I've got a bonus fact at the end that will completely change how you watch the opening scene. Let's go behind the family business. Marlon Brando's bulldog transformation. Marlon Brando stuffed cotton balls in his cheeks during his audition to create the bulldog look for Vito Corleone. But what audiences don't know is the physical toll this took. The cotton wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. Brando struggled to breathe and speak clearly, constantly fighting the urge to swallow the cotton. For the actual filming, a dentist created a special mouthpiece that achieved the same effect. The transformation was so complete that Brando's own children didn't recognize him in costume. It wasn't just makeup, it was a complete physical reconstruction of one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Francis Ford Coppola was nearly fired every day. Paramount executives hated Coppola's vision from day one. They wanted a cheap, fast gangster B-movie. Instead, Coppola was shooting an epic masterpiece with slow pacing and artistic cinematography. The studio brass would arrive on set daily, clipboards in hand, ready to replace him. Producer Robert Evans later admitted they came within hours of firing Coppola multiple times during the first month of shooting. What saved him wasn't his talent initially, it was the footage. When executives saw the dailies, they realized they had something special. The film that almost destroyed Coppola's career became the foundation of it. The cat was a complete accident. The cat that Marlon Brando holds in the opening scene was a stray that Coppola found on the Paramount lot and wasn't originally in the script. But here's what's never been revealed. The cat was so content during filming that its purring was louder than Brando's already muffled dialogue. Most of Brando's lines had to be completely re-recorded in post-production because the cat's purring overwhelmed the audio track. The spontaneous addition created one of cinema's most iconic images, but it also created a massive post-production nightmare that cost the film an additional week of work and thousands of dollars in audio mixing. Al Pacino was almost fired multiple times. Studio executives despised Al Pacino's casting as Michael Corleone. They thought he was too short, too intense, and completely wrong for the role of the family's golden boy. After viewing early footage, they demanded Coppola replace him with a real movie star. The breaking point came during the restaurant scene where Michael kills Sollozzo and McCluskey. Executives watched the dailies and were convinced Pacino couldn't carry the film's dramatic weight. Only Coppola's threat to quit if Pacino was fired saved the casting. Without that stand, cinema would have lost one of its greatest performances. The role that made Pacino a legend almost went to someone else entirely. Real mobsters threatened the production. The Italian-American Civil Rights League, with connections to actual organized crime families, initially opposed the film's production. They feared it would reinforce negative stereotypes about Italian Americans. League founder Joe Colombo, himself a mob boss, organized protests and threatened to shut down filming. The tension was so severe that Paramount hired security guards and considered moving production out of New York. The breakthrough came when Coppola and producer Al Ruddy met with Colombo directly. They agreed to remove the words Mafia and Cosa Nostra from the script entirely. This wasn't artistic compromise, it was survival. Real consequences from real criminals shaped one of cinema's most celebrated scripts. James Caan's method acting nearly destroyed the set. James Caan threw himself so completely into Sonny Corleone's violent nature that he became genuinely dangerous on set. During the famous scene where Sonny attacks Carlo for beating his sister, Caan's rage was so authentic that he actually broke actor Gianni Russo's ribs. The crew was terrified during Sonny's death scene at the toll booth because Caan's reactions to the squib explosions were so violent they worried he might injure himself or the stunt team. Caan later admitted he couldn't separate himself from Sonny's fury between takes. The performance that electrifies audiences was genuinely frightening for everyone who witnessed it firsthand. The horsehead scene created real trauma. The infamous horsehead scene used a real horsehead obtained from a dog food factory, and the crew's reaction was anything but professional. Several crew members became physically ill during filming, with 2 people actually vomiting on set. Actor John Marley, who plays Hollywood producer Jack Woltz, was genuinely shocked when he discovered the head beside him. Coppola hadn't told him it would be real. Marley's scream of horror is completely authentic because he expected a fake prop. The scene that audiences watched through their fingers created genuine trauma for everyone involved in its creation. It wasn't movie magic, it was controlled nightmare. Diane Keaton was completely intimidated by her co-stars. Diane Keaton felt utterly out of place among the intense male energy dominating the set. She was relatively unknown, surrounded by method actors like Pacino, Caan, and Brando, all channeling dangerous characters. Between takes, the men would stay partially in character, creating an atmosphere of constant tension. Keaton later revealed she was so intimidated that she could barely eat meals with the cast. Her performance as Kay, the outsider trying to understand this violent family, was informed by her real experience as an outsider trying to navigate this intense production. The fear in her eyes when she looks at Michael isn't just acting, it's genuine apprehension about the world she'd entered. The wedding scene required actual Italian families. Coppola insisted on authenticity for Connie's wedding, so he hired actual Italian-American families from New York to play the wedding guests. These weren't actors, they were real families with their own complex relationships and personalities. During filming, several genuine arguments broke out between families over seating arrangements and screen time. The production became a real Italian wedding with all the associated drama. Coppola had to mediate actual family disputes while trying to shoot one of the film's most important sequences. The warmth and authenticity audiences see isn't performance, it's real family dynamics playing out in front of the cameras. The studio wanted Elvis Presley as Don Corleone. Before Marlon Brando was cast, Paramount executives seriously considered Elvis Presley for the role of Vito Corleone. They believed Elvis could bring a younger audience to what they saw as an old-fashioned gangster story. The idea was so developed that Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, received a formal offer. Elvis himself was intrigued by the dramatic departure from his musical roles. Only when Brando's screen test proved undeniably perfect did the studio abandon this catastrophic casting idea. Imagine The Godfather with Elvis mumbling through cotton-stuffed cheeks. Cinema history would have been completely different. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because we're about to reveal how a simple continuity error created one of the most quoted lines in movie history. And trust me, you've never heard this story before. "Leave the gun, take the cannoli," was improvised. The iconic line, "Leave the gun, take the cannoli," was never in the original script. Actor Richard Castellano, playing Pete Clemenza, added it spontaneously during filming. His character's wife had mentioned cannoli earlier, so Castellano thought it would be natural for him to remember her request even during a murder cleanup. Coppola loved the improvisation because it perfectly captured the film's theme of family obligations intersecting with violence. The line that became synonymous with The Godfather's dark humor was a complete accident. It wasn't written by screenwriters or planned by directors. It emerged from an actor's instinct for character truth. Marlon Brando refused to memorize lines. Brando arrived on set with his lines written on cue cards hidden throughout the set. He had cards taped to other actors' foreheads, hidden behind props, and stuck to walls just outside the camera's view. This wasn't laziness. It was Brando's method for keeping his performance fresh and spontaneous. The other actors had to adjust their performances around Brando's wandering eyes as he searched for his next line. What audiences interpret as Don Corleone's calculating pauses are often Brando frantically looking for his cue cards. The gravitas that made Vito Corleone legendary was partially built on panic and improvisation. The blood was pancake syrup and red dye. The film's brutal violence required massive amounts of fake blood, but movie blood in 1972 was primitive compared to today's effects. The crew mixed pancake syrup with red food coloring to create the blood effects, which created unexpected problems. The syrup attracted insects during outdoor shoots, particularly during Sonny's death scene. Actors complained that the sticky fake blood ruined their costumes and was nearly impossible to wash off their skin. James Caan spent hours in makeup removing syrup blood that had hardened like candy. The violence that appears effortless on screen required actors to endure genuine physical discomfort and very real cleanup nightmares. Al Pacino's transformation scared his own family. Pacino's method approach to Michael Corleone was so complete that his personality changed off-camera. His own family and friends became concerned about his increasing isolation and cold demeanor during filming. Pacino would stay partially in character between takes, practicing Michael's calculating stare and measured speech patterns. Close friends reported that Pacino seemed genuinely dangerous during the production period. The transformation that audiences watch on screen was so thorough that it temporarily consumed the actor's real personality. Pacino later admitted he struggled to return to himself after filming wrapped, carrying Michael's darkness for months after production ended. The restaurant gun was a real weapon. The gun Michael uses to kill Sollozzo and McCluskey in the restaurant was a real firearm, modified to fire blanks. During rehearsals, the gun misfired multiple times, creating genuine fear among the cast and crew. Al Pacino was terrified of handling the weapon, having never used a gun before. The close-quarters shooting in the restaurant required careful choreography because the blank cartridges still produced real flames and explosive force. Pacino's nervousness handling the weapon added to Michael's amateur demeanor in the scene. The hesitation audiences see isn't just acting, it's an actor genuinely afraid of the weapon he's holding. Robert Duvall almost quit over money. Robert Duvall, playing consigliere Tom Hagen, was offered significantly less money than his co-stars despite having equal screen time. He threatened to quit multiple times during pre-production negotiations. The salary dispute became so heated that Coppola personally intervened, offering to pay Duvall from his own director's fee. Duvall's anger about his compensation affected his early scenes, adding genuine tension to his interactions with other characters. The calm, measured performance that defines Tom Hagen was achieved despite Duvall's very real frustration with the production's business decisions. Sometimes great art emerges from completely unrelated conflicts. The Toll Booth Massacre used 147 bullet hits. Sonny's death at the toll booth required 147 individual squib explosions to simulate bullet impacts on James Caan's body and the car. Each squib had to be individually wired and timed to create the machine gun effect. The sequence took 3 days to film because resetting the squibs after each take was enormously time-consuming. Caan wore a special vest with pockets for each explosive device, making him look like a human demolition project. The crew was genuinely worried about Caan's safety because one misfiring squib could cause serious burns. The violence that lasts seconds on screen required days of dangerous preparation and genuine risk to achieve. Lenny Montana was a real enforcer. Lenny Montana, who plays hitman Luca Brasi, was actually a former enforcer for the Colombo crime family. His famous nervousness during the "Don Corleone, I am honored" scene wasn't acting. He was genuinely intimidated by meeting Marlon Brando. Montana had met real mobsters throughout his life, but he was starstruck by Brando's legendary status. Coppola loved Montana's authentic nervousness and built it into the character. The scene that shows a hardened killer reduced to stammering wasn't scripted that way. It emerged from a real tough guy being overwhelmed by Hollywood glamour. Sometimes the best performances come from people not trying to act at all. The film's success shocked everyone. Paramount expected The Godfather to be a modest success at best. They budgeted it as a mid-tier release and planned minimal marketing. The studio was so convinced it would flop that they nearly sold the sequel rights before the first film was released. Early test screenings received mixed reactions because audiences weren't prepared for the film's deliberate pacing and complex narrative. When The Godfather became the highest-grossing film of 1972, studio executives were genuinely shocked. They had spent months trying to minimize what became their biggest success. The film that transformed cinema was treated as a potential embarrassment by the people who financed it. Al Pacino's accent was wrong the entire time. Al Pacino's distinctive Michael Corleone accent was completely inaccurate for the character's background. Michael was supposed to have been educated at Dartmouth and have a refined, upper-class accent reflecting his privileged upbringing. Pacino's street-smart New York delivery was completely wrong for an Ivy League war hero. Coppola realized the mistake early in filming, but decided Pacino's intensity was more important than accent accuracy. The voice that became iconic for Michael Corleone was technically a character error that improved the performance. Sometimes the best artistic choices are the wrong ones that feel absolutely right. Bonus fact: here's something that will blow your mind. The cat's purring during the opening scene was so loud that most of Marlon Brando's dialogue had to be re-recorded in post-production. But what nobody knows is that the cat belonged to a Paramount executive's daughter. The executive had been trying to fire Coppola for weeks, but his own daughter's pet ended up creating one of the most memorable moments in the film. The same studio politics trying to destroy the movie accidentally contributed to its most iconic scene. The irony was completely lost on everyone until decades later when the truth emerged. The Godfather wasn't just made, it was survived. Behind every perfect frame lies a story of genuine conflict, real danger, and creative battles that could have destroyed the entire production. What we see as seamless filmmaking was actually controlled chaos, held together by sheer determination and accidental brilliance. The film that redefined cinema was almost never completed. The performances that became legendary almost never happened. The masterpiece that critics celebrate was treated as a potential disaster by the people funding it. If you enjoyed these behind-the-scenes revelations, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments which fact shocked you the most. Because in Hollywood, just like in the Corleone family, nothing is ever exactly what it appears to be. Remember, leave the gun, take the stories.